All right, getting ready 10. So we're solving inequalities here and justifying on the right-hand side. So start with our line. How do we get x alone? We need to cancel that minus 5. The opposite of that, the inverse of that, is adding 5 to both sides. So we end up with x is less than 40. Again, remember, it's not just the 40 that is your solution. It's this entire inequality. X is less than 40. And that is the addition property of inequalities. Number 2, to get x by itself, we subtract 68 on both sides. So x is less than 7. That was using the subtraction property of inequalities. Okay, number 3. We need to add 4 to both sides, leaving us 2x less than or equal to 14. That was the addition property of inequalities. And then we need to divide both sides by 2. So x is less than or equal to 7. That used our division property of inequalities. Number 4. This is a positive 5 hanging out here that we need to get rid of. The sign in front of the number stays with it. So that is positive, meaning we will need to subtract 5 on both sides. This negative sign is part of the 4x, so it must remain negative 4x is less than or equal to 12. And that was the subtraction property of inequalities. Now, here we are, first time today, we're going to divide away this negative 4. But with inequalities, when you divide or multiply by a negative, you must switch the inequality symbol. So it goes from a less than or equal to greater than or equal. And 12 over negative 4 is negative 3. Okay? That is the division property of inequalities. Number 5. Looks tougher since there's fractions on both sides, but really this is just saying x divided by negative 3. The opposite of division of negative 3 is to multiply by negative 3 on both sides. Once again, though, we are multiplying by a negative, so we will have to remember to switch the inequality symbol. So this becomes x is, instead of less than, it's greater than. Now, negative 10/9 times negative 3 over 1 is positive 30 over 9, which we will reduce to say that's x is greater than 10/3. We do not want to write 3.3. That is not the same as 10/3. We do not round rational numbers. Okay, so we used here the multiplication property of inequalities. Okay, a few more steps in number 6, because we do have parentheses, so we need to start with distributive property, giving us 2x minus 6 less than or equal to 3x minus 2. Okay, so that's distributive property. Now there are variables on both sides. Since 2x is smaller than 3x, I'll cancel the 2x. That means I need to subtract 2x from both sides. I'll be left with negative 6 is less than or equal to x, or 1x, minus 2. That was the subtraction property of inequalities. To isolate the x, I now need to add 2 to both sides. So negative 4 is less than or equal to x. That's the addition property of inequalities. Now this answer is fine. If it bothers you to have the variable on the right-hand side, you can switch everything. Bring the x to this side, the negative 4 to the right, but then you have to switch the inequality symbol and make it greater than or equal. Okay, 7 and 8, we're going to solve little one-step inequalities and then graph them. So number 7, we just need to add 8 to both sides. That gives us x is greater than negative 12. So I come over here somewhere in the middle of my number line and put a negative 12. To the left, counting by ones, negative 13, negative 14, negative 15, negative 16, negative 17. To the right, negative 11, negative 10, negative 9, negative 8, negative 7. Okay? Since it is x greater than negative 12, not equal, just greater, I'm going to put an open circle in negative 12. And then, since it's greater than, I'm shading to the right. Okay, number 8. My one step is to subtract 11. I'm left with x is greater than 2. Somewhere in the center of my number line, I put a 2. To the left, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. To the right, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Same inequality symbol, it is greater than, so open circle on the 2, and shade to the right. Okay, the rest of these we do not need to graph, but we are solving multiple step inequalities. So, in number 9, first step would be to subtract 3, leaving 4/3 x less than negative 4. Now, since 4/3 is the coefficient of that variable, I like to remove it by multiplying by the reciprocal. In this case, that's 3/4. So x is less than, now that's negative 4 over 1 times 3/4, that's negative 12 over 4, which is negative 3. Now I did not need to switch the inequality symbol because I multiplied by a positive number. I started with a negative number on the right-hand side. My answer on the right-hand side was a negative number, but what I did to both sides was multiply by a positive. So no flipping of the symbol. Number 10. There are parentheses, so the first thing we'll need to do is to distribute. Distribute this 2 on the right-hand side. The left I'll leave alone for now. 7/5 minus 6x is less than, becomes 4x plus, now 2 times 3/2 is 6/2. 6/2 is 3. I have variables on both sides. Negative 6x is smaller than 4x, so I will add 6x to both sides, leaving me 7/5 over here on the left is less than 10x plus 3. Subtract 3 on both sides. Now, 7/5 minus 3. I need common denominators, so that's 7/5 minus 15/5. So our fraction here is negative 8/5. So negative 8/5 is less than 10x. And last step, divide both sides by 10. Now again, over on the side, I might want to look at negative 8/5 divided by 10. Well, that's 10 over 1. You divide fractions by multiplying the reciprocal. So negative 8/5 times 1 over 10 is negative 8 over 50. And that reduces to negative 4 over 25. So negative 4 over 25 is less than x. Or if your steps had been different, you might have ended up with x is greater than negative 4 over 25. Negative 4 over 25 could also be written as negative 0.16. Okay, number 11. Again, we have parentheses, this time on both sides, so we'll distribute here on the left, get 20x plus 15 is greater than, distributing the 9 here, 9x minus 18 minus x. Okay, now we have like terms on the right-hand side, so I want to combine those before I try solving anything. So let me have 20x plus 15 is greater than, these two combine to make 8x minus 18. I have variables on both sides, 20x compared to 8x. 8x is smaller, so I'll cancel that one, subtract 8x. 20x minus 8x is 12x plus 15 greater than negative 18. Subtract 15 from both sides. So 12x is greater than negative 33. And when I divide both sides by 12, I'm left with x is greater than, now again, this is a rational number. I don't want to make a decimal. I want to reduce to negative 11 over 4, or I guess that's a terminating decimal, negative 2.75. And number 12. Number 12's got a little of everything. There's variables on both sides, there's parentheses, there's fractions. So let's take our time and go through this nice and easy. We need to distribute on the left and on the right, leave everything else alone. So 2/3 x. Now that negative sign is part of the 1/2. So as we distribute, that's negative 1/2 times 4x is negative 2x. And negative 1/2 times negative 1 is positive 1/2. Greater than, leave this x alone, 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 3 is 6. Both sides have some like terms that can be combined before I move on. So 2/3 x minus 2x. Well, 2x is really like 6/3. So 2/3 minus 6/3 is negative 4/3 x plus 1/2 is greater than 1x and 2x is 3x plus 6. Now I need to cancel one of my variables. Since negative 4/3 is smaller than 3, I'm going to add 4/3 x to both sides, leaving me 1/2 greater than, now if I make these into both thirds, this is 9/3 plus 4/3 is 13/3 x plus 6. Subtract the 6 from both sides. Well, 6 is 12/2, so 1/2 minus 12/2 is negative 11/2, greater than 13/3 x. And last step, to get rid of this fractional coefficient, I multiply by the reciprocal 3 over 13. Multiply both sides times 3 over 13. So here I have an x. This is a positive times a negative, leaving me a negative 33 over 26. That cannot be reduced. Do not change it into a decimal. We do not round rational numbers. So either negative 33 over 26 is greater than x, or x is less than negative 33 over 26.